episode 9 of the Stridyl Unplugged podcast. We are up in the Gold Coast for the Magic Millions sale, which commences this week. But we are joined by the managing director of the Kick Collective, TTR, Vicky Leonard. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be with you guys.
Now, busy week. Obviously, you're pulled left, right, so we really appreciate you coming on and joining us. Bit of a chat about your background and obviously having a wide perspective of the global racing industry. Why horse racing? What got you into it?
Well, I grew up on a farm in rural New Zealand and loved ponies. When I was 10, I did a famous person project. I was allowed to do it on a horse. So I did it on Sir Tristram and wrote to Sir Patrick Hogan and got a big box of like all his breeding records and marketing materials back and an invitation to visit Cambridge Stud. So as a 10-year-old, I went up there my next school holidays with a friend from Pony Club, and we spent 2 days at Cambridge Stud. Actually, there's a photo of me grooming 8-carat and Diamond Lover, and I could barely touch their withers. Now in hindsight, I'm like, oh god, we're like two best broodmares New Zealand's ever seen. And I was hooked from there. So when you get kind of obsessed as a kid. So I used to follow everything to do with Zabel, everything to do with Cambridge Stud. And then when I was 17, I wrote to Cambridge Stud and said, do you have a job? And spent my first university holidays doing a yelling prep and was basically completely hooked from there.
So your family background, are they anything to do with horse racing, horses? Like what like it's like a strange bug, like women in the
weird bug, isn't it?
You do love your horses.
Yeah, I mean, it really came through from a love of horses. And then I guess Dad's always had a few trotters. I'm from the South Island. It's a place where I'm from is where Farlap was born, Timaru, but it's really not known for much thoroughbred racing. It's mainly harness. So Dad always owned a few trotters, and he was certainly more than happy to encourage my addiction. And Mum, I suppose, just copped it as well, along for the ride. But yeah, my love for the industry came through horses first, and then I suppose, riding horses fast and getting involved in racing was a natural progression from there.
And you did the normal progression of yearling preps, etc. Did you spend much time on that side? The real hands-on stud racing handling side?
Yeah, I did a few yelling preps while I was studying. So I studied at Otago University. I was doing a degree in zoology and ecology, which has been of little use. But, it was good to do it. And I did my summer holidays at Cambridge Stud. But then during the year, I'd work at White Robe Lodge, which is, a farm down in Mosgiel. And at the same time, Bruce Slade and Mike Rennie were working there. So it's how I met Mike's at Waikato Stud. Bruce, of course, runs his own business out of the Gold Coast and became, great friends. And I'm still, particularly close with Bruce and Tash. So, yeah, it's amazing, actually. Andy Williams was at Otago University at that time as well. So we, there's been a real tribe come through Otago. And I guess, sort of fell in love with racing, but then got a bit more into the punting side of things and then into the business of the industry. And after I graduated from uni, actually, my sister spotted at a careers expo a stall for the New Zealand Racing Board. And she was like, did you know that this exists? You don't really understand the industry that well at that age. And I went down and spoke to them and I was like, oh, my degree's in science, though. It's not in business. And they were like, oh, chuck an application in. So I threw a nom in and I was able to get one of the internships. And so I ended up spending 2 years in a graduate program at the New Zealand Racing Board, which was great because you really got to see how the industry was run. He spent 3 months in legal, 3 months trackside, 3 months in the betting side of things, and just shifted around all the time. But it was at a time New Zealand racing was going pretty poorly, and it really motivated me to want to learn more about industry leadership, which is why I ended up applying for the Godolphin Flying Start scholarship. And I, really said to them in the interview that I'll come back to New Zealand when I can run it, like when I'm in a position to change it, because it's so frustrating working for a company that had, 600-700 employees and probably 5 of them knew the front end from the back end of a horse. And I was like, how is anything going to change when the leadership is like that here? So I went to Flying Start, but my goal for Flying Start was to be able to work for John Massara because he was he was the god of industry leadership and what he'd already done through setting up things like Ozhorse, through just always being the person people turn to when in times of crisis. And so during Flying Start, I did a 6-week placement at Arrowfield, got on like a house on fire with them, and John was just in the process of actually being appointed chairman of Racing New South Wales. So it all worked out really well. And I told John I needed to work for him, and he said, look, top the class and I'll employ you. So I had to work my little butt off and rang him up and I was like, you have to employ me now. And he did. So made up a job.
And the Darley Flying Start course, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, can you explain the process of getting involved, how you got enrolled, and essentially what is the crux of what is it as a program looking to achieve as well?
Yeah, so Flying Start was sort of established, I suppose, to develop leaders. I guess the best way to describe it is like a travelling MBA in horse racing. And it's amazing that it even exists, really, because it's a fully paid scholarship funded by Sheikh Mohammed. And they pick 12 people from around the world. And you spend sort of 3 to 6 months in different jurisdictions. So 3 months in Ireland, England, 7 months in Kentucky, 6 months in Australia, back and then over to Dubai for 3 months. But you also get to go to like Hong Kong and France and that sort of thing. So mornings tend to be hands-on, really practical, and then afternoons is academic. So it's anything from marketing to law to insurance. You do a farrier course, you do a bit of everything. So it's really amazing, and you get access to some of the best bloodstock and all the great race meetings of the world. So it's an amazing 2-year scholarship, and I did that. I graduated in 2011, and it was actually the period while I was on the course was an amazing time for international racing. We had Frankel running, See the Stars, won his Arc, Zenyatta, Rachel Alexandra. So it was really cool. We got to see some really special horses. Which
I absolutely fangirled over Zenyatta.
Oh,
she was an absolute queen.
And then she had that stride.
She was unreal.
Yeah,
that's unreal. And so with that scholarship, it is a scholarship, so it's paid for.
Yeah,
and not by you.
100%. Amazing. Like, you get a bit of a pension sort of to spend while you're on it, and they cover everything from accommodation to cars to race tickets, flights. So it's amazing, like incredible.
And just for anyone who is quite interested in any young sort of buds that are interested, what was your sort of entry level to get in? Like, obviously, I know you have go through just talk to us about that interview process and how it is you actually qualify.
So actually for this year's intake, applications have just opened. So they'll close at the end of February or mid-February. But essentially, you need to either have extensive experience in the industry, working hands-on, or a university degree coupled with some experience. It is quite academic, so they do need a certain standard of like written English and that sort of thing. So you go through an application process. They want to know that you can ride a horse because you do a module at the British Racing School. And then you go through a process of shortlisted down to doing psychometric testing, doing some analysis sort of work, and then an interview process. So, it's pretty, the interview process, the whole process goes for, a few weeks, 6 weeks, but it's certainly, like, it's an incredible opportunity, and if you've got a real passion for making a difference in the industry and wanting to end up, the best end of whatever you want to do, Flying Start is whether that's a trainer or whether that's, a vet or whatever it is, that's the way to do it. Like, it's an incredible opportunity. So I really recommend anyone who's interested, jump on the website, and there's heaps of graduates around, and we're all keen to answer
the alumni.
Yeah, and this mate, one of the best things about it really is actually the opportunities globally, because you can walk into any sale ground or racetrack around the world and there'll be graduates there. Yeah, it doesn't matter where it is. I can turn up in Argentina and I end up, getting looked after by, the Flying Start network. So, and a lot of my staff and a lot of my clients are also Flying Starters. So it's cool. It's great. It's a really tremendous initiative. And Claudia Kavanagh, who runs it, is an amazing job.
She's got such a tough job.
Yeah.
I don't envy her. So once you finished up from the Darley Flying Start, John was true to his word and you went straight to Arrowfield.
Yeah, so I joined Arrowfield. They didn't have a job. So I was doing, actually the first 6 months I was doing just research projects. John's an amazing guy because he's really vision orientated and thinks massive, right? Thinks really big, but he gets into the nitty gritty of detail.
Yep.
So he'll never go into something without having thoroughly analysed it.
Yep.
And so when he took over the chairmanship at Racing New South Wales and then into Racing Australia, the first exercise that I had to do was a huge cost analysis of what it cost to have a horse in training in Australia, and then what your return on prize money was, and then compare that to other major racing jurisdictions. And at that point in time, basically having a horse in work in Australia, you were likely to get 0.3 of your training fees back in earnings, on average. And, you know, at that stage, so Japan was 1.2, like you're making money having horses in work. Hong Kong's 0.9. And look, you know, Australia was still on the better end of the developed nations, like New Zealand was off terrible. I mean, a lot of them were, but he wanted to make sure that basically get to a goal of prize money being, if you could win a decent city race, it should be able to pay for your training fees for at least 6 months, you know, like, and that doesn't include the capital cost of the horse.
Yep.
So I'd do a big analysis on all of that, which was fascinating and put into context, I guess, just how looking sustainably at our own industry can run. I mean, it always goes back to the nitty gritty of, you know, money in, money out, and where's it going, what's it doing, and how can you utilize it better. And so it was pretty cool. So I was there for 6 months, and then the role of marketing manager popped up, and they threw me in the deep end. We're like, see how you swim. So I'd never done any marketing training, but the great thing about marketing is it's essentially psychology, isn't it? So if you can, you know, if you've got a good creative eye, you can learn a lot yourself, and if you're motivated, you can pick up anything. So.
And how did your relationship with John evolve over that? Because obviously he was someone that you really looked up to, someone that you really wanted to work. Do you think did you get the skill set that you were looking for from John?
It was, an amazing period of time because they just won the Racefields legislation. So it was at a time where New South Wales was coming into money.
Yep.
And it needed to be spent properly. And then so basically he'd been there for about 18 months, and they'd worked out that there was a massive gap in what New South Wales is paying in taxation compared to Victoria. So they led a really interesting political drive to get tax parity brought up. And they ended up getting that through.
Yep.
It was quite interesting how that whole process came around. So learning a lot about political relationships, how to make things happen. I mean, I'm quite an impatient person, and John is very good at, just, you've got to let it play out. You know, he's really good at respecting process and understanding, although while he's really good at thinking outside the box and pushing things to change and be better, he's very respectful of, you know, what processes and
Yep.
you know, respectful around people and how they need to be treated in the process as well. So, I mean, it was an amazing time to be there working with him, and John's, you know, I still talk to him most days, and he's an amazing mentor, and somebody that the whole industry should be really proud to have, you know, having led us through that time. So, it was awesome. I don't think I probably could have gone to a better school for learning of our industry. So he's a very generous man with his time and his knowledge. So it was cool.
And then straight out of Arrowfield, you started kick collector straight away?
Yeah, so when I was at Arrowfield, once John finished at Racing South Wales and Racing Australia, I was sort of starting to look for my next role. And he said, look, there's a couple of things you need to do if you want to end up being, you know, going back. And my goal was always to be CEO of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, I guess, was the goal. He said, one, just being, you know, brutal here, you're a female, you need to tick every box. Like, if you're going to compete with blokes to get some of these jobs, you need to be so convincing. So he's like, you've done a science degree, he told me actually I needed to go and do an accounting degree, and I was like, the odds of that happening is a swan's enough. So, and he goes, look, I'll pay for you to do an MBA. So I stayed on another 3 years at Arrowfield, ended up being 7 years in total. In the last 3 years, I was studying at the same time. So, and he really helped me through that. Actually, the whole team were awesome. It was it was a team MBA. Like, Martin Story helped me write through all the accounting papers, and it was great. And Susan's incredible there, and John Freer. So it was cool. And then, so I did that. And also, he basically said, look, if you're going to end up in a leadership role in the industry, you need to learn how hard it is to make money.
Yeah.
Because if you're only spending the industry's money, it's bloody tough. And, you can see how far quickly it leaks, how much tax is required, you know, how expensive staff are, how to look after staff. And so he's like, you know, the best thing you can do is run your own company, because, you know, you starve if you don't do it right. And, a lot of politicians probably could have done with running their own company, right? You know, because they spend our tax money pretty quickly. And so he's like, learn how to run a business. And so I said, well, I think there's a big opportunity for a sort of all-encompassing full-service marketing agency, because we'd been working with PM Advertising in Kentucky, because we hadn't been able to find anyone similar in Australia. that really knew the industry well. And I think there's a big opportunity here. And he said, yeah, I agree. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to be creating adverts and advertising for clients, it needs to be advertised in a really good media publication. And there just wasn't one up to standard of something like the TDN in America. Yep. So that was how Gary King and I got chatting. And I said, what about if we were to set up TDN in Australia? And he's like, love it, keen, I'll be in with you. So we did. So I did kick in, and at the time it was TDN. We've rebranded now to be the Thoroughbred Report to have our own sort of identity. But I did them both at the same time, which I'm really glad I did, because I don't think I would have started the business knowing how hard it is.
No.
So I was like, figure it. So I just did them both at the same time, which actually, like ignorance is bliss. And so
I can't tell you that one of our biggest skill sets is not knowing.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of better off not knowing.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you knew, you would never
if you knew, you don't do it.
You'd never do it. So, yeah, I did them both at the same time, and had not really a lot of money. I mean, I had sort of had a few bit of savings, but it was pretty much like I had to be profitable within the first couple of months or it was done. Like, I was drowning. So, kept costs at an all-time low, and, just was able to pick up a few really good supporters and great clients off the bat. So, Sam Fairgrave had just taken over Yulong, and they'd just taken on Grunt as their first foundation stallion, and he was the first person that came to me, was like, help. And I had a great relationship with Sam, having worked with them for 7 years at Arrowfield, 6 years at Arrowfield. So there was sort of got the ball rolling, and Yulong's one was still my biggest one, our biggest client today. And we always had a lot of work with America off the bat too. So I love the American industry and spent a lot of time there.
Yep.
And got great friends there. So it's been good to have that sort of, I suppose, cross-jurisdictional work come in.
And with your knowledge of horse racing around globally, and obviously having so many touch points from the ground right up to, government, where are we going? Where do you think we're going? Is it like, as a sport in Australia, it's very buoyant, but from your perspective, how do you make 2025 look and beyond, and for good?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit nervous about some areas of the industry. I think that we've got a thick layer of gloss that's hiding some problems at the moment. I mean, not to say that they can't be fixed. I think they're very solvable. Certainly what's great is that there's a lot of positive movement. Things like that. I mean, obviously the Everest has been incredible. What Racing South Wales have done there is amazing. But, I mean, a lot of people would know that a big passion of mine is industry perception, because we have to meet the standards of the everyday Australian. And yeah, they expect a lot more of us than what they did 20 years ago, but so they should. Like, standards have improved, and they have in every division of life. And as an industry, we have to not just keep up, we've really got to start exceeding that, and we're not doing well enough in a lot of those areas. But I don't think it's that hard to fix. It's just got to be given the attention that it deserves. So, I mean, it's interesting where the industry can go from here, because we're at a point where if momentum can take us so far, but we need a really, really strong foundation to be built on. And at the moment, there's quite a few fractures in a few different areas that need to be properly concentrated on, and hopefully will be. We'll see, what happens. There's certainly a lot of movement around a lot of different things at the moment, and the political space, racing's carries a lot of political capital.
Yeah.
It always has, because there's wealthy people involved and they own a lot of big businesses. So there's a lot that can be done, and there's a lot of smart people and a lot of very motivated people to do it. So if the right political ingredients get together, I guess, I think it can really build a foundation that racing can launch, and keep launching off.
And with that side of it, we see in other sports, such as F1, the investment they've had there, and the leadership, and the incredible how they've tapped into, Netflix audience, etc., and bringing a new audience in. We've seen it with boxing recently with Logan Paul fighting Mike Tyson. The numbers there were incredible. We've seen it sports like UFC, the English Premier League is an example. A lot of sports are getting a lot of investment from a lot of smart people. That support seems to be for the attention side of it, where we're all going to with streaming platforms, etc. Can you see like-minded people with that form of investment coming into horse racing? Because we're one of the most consumed sports in the world globally, from America, here in the UK, Europe, etc. Can you see anywhere where we might see investment of that magnitude come into horse racing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it kind of the Middle East is seeing a real boom in racing at the moment, and that's only going to really continue. They seem that they're loving it and really getting involved. Certainly the Hong Kong jockey clubs reassessing their strategy. I think because they're going to be expanding what Chungfa does, which is in China now. I mean, of course, we've had a bit of a juggle around with Singapore and things, but I do think one of the biggest challenges is, like, when you come in and launch huge investment into a sport, it's got to be able to withstand scrutiny. And there are, at the moment, a few cracks that we can't really withstand scrutiny in several areas. Not well enough that I think would allow somebody to come in and just launch in a huge, in terms of an industry investment way, not just a bloodstock investment or a racing stock investment way. But as I said, I can see that. I can see that getting fixed. I mean, you look at, America's a country I spend a lot of time in, and I love the people there. I find they've got great energy, but it's a challenging model, right? It's really fractured in America.
Yeah.
As frustrated as we get about states not getting on in Australia, there's not many states, whereas in America there's a lot of them. And they don't really have any leadership. But, what they've been able to do with bring in HISA, which is like the first federal regulated drug enforcement, has completely turned around their equine safety record. So, like, within 2 years of being involved, it's plummeted.
Yep.
And which is awesome. And we're now entering a stage of innovation with technology, things like AI, and which is going to be implemented through wearables, through how horses are treated in veterinary care, the millions getting put into research, that allows us to be able to have that foundation where our equine safety records are going to be the best they've ever been.
Yep.
Which is awesome. That just has to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think without that, and then, like, I guess the other challenge with huge investment getting involved into the industry in the States has been, the missing piece had been a federal, national drug regulation policy.
Yep.
But there's certainly an avenue for it. It's just, I guess, who and how and what they do, because one of the big challenges, of course, is everybody, fighting over their state and where they get involved. So, but I mean, there's certainly opportunity, but it's also frustrating seeing how much the industry hasn't changed. Like, it was funny, I was chatting to a couple of farmers today. We were sitting there at the Arrowfield market actually yarning about how dairy farming's evolved so much in the last 20 years. Like, a dairy shed, like how cows are milked, they now like test the milk to make sure that the ratios of everything, and they've changed the feed according to what that cow, like, literally getting drawn out the milk. Let alone the fact that there's now technology that's come out in New Zealand that don't need paddocks anymore, right? You teach them through beeps where the lines are. Like,
No way.
it's off tap. Like, we're sitting there going, nothing has really changed in our industry in that space. I mean, even sitting there watching TV, you watch the cricket, you watch the golf, you watch yachting. I'm not going to lie, I find those three of the most boring sports in the world. But they've done awesome animations to make it so cool. Like, how has that not been done in racing?
Yeah.
Like, how can you not watch a replay and see that, okay, that horse travelled an extra 5.7 metres compared to, it got held up and that stopped momentum by X amount.
Yep.
Or by race 3, we should be able to know that, if you're one off the, the inside, that's going to be 2, seconds quicker over 12. I'm just making it riffy here, but like, there's so many ways that we could be throwing analytics and layers of, sophistication around what we're watching and making it exciting. Like, it's awesome watching, like, the cricket and seeing where all the sixes have gone. Well, imagine being able to see the paths that the different horses have run overlaid over it,
Yeah.
So there's so many things, and that space hasn't even been touched, which is fascinating considering that we've got so much wagering investment, because you'd think that would drive wagering and hunting.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of space that this hasn't even been explored, and I think people go a little bit for the quick hits, which are the glamorous yearling sales, but we all know, like, that's tough, like, and and it's so expensive, right? And, like, you ask any breeder, like, the easy way to make money, and they'll just say, like, there's a million other ways that you can make money. Not this way. So, I think for sure there's a huge opportunity for it. I can see why it probably hasn't been jumped on quite as easily. the being able to withstand scrutiny has to be our major goal as an industry. And then look, yeah, perhaps there could be some huge opportunities because the world's our oyster. So many ways to go. We've got a fun sport to start with, right?
I know, because I think about it a lot because my first love is racing, but I do have a second love for eventing. And when I compare them both, we're in such a unique opportunity for our sport is that it's really hard to understand. For anyone, it's really hard to understand. There's a start and there's an end, and it's done in 2 minutes. Whereas you look at complex sports like golf, whatever, which takes them how many holes, and they've all got to play, and they're all getting around, and you can go away and come back for 2 hours later, and really not much has changed.
Well, cricket 5 days,
Yeah, it's just and eventing is in the same way. We have a trouble in eventing, and we have trouble with it still as being an Olympic sport because people find it really hard to follow. And if they don't understand the first part of the sport, and they've got the second part to follow, and then where does that leave them on the third part, And I just think that racing it should be so easy to convert people because of being able to understand that. And I think you're quite right on being able to put in other measuring and other variables within it to make it really interesting for people. So whether it's the fact that they're just really enjoy watching our race, whether it could be anything, but if they can able to come in and tune in on different ways, I think that would be, I do think that would be something.
Well, the perfect sport for it because there's a gap between every race, so you can analyze it and dissect it properly. I mean, I know that of course you've got the next race coming up for different jurisdictions, but between to channel like Thoroughbred Central, there's plenty of time to be working through it and showing runs and saying, okay, well, this barrier is not going to be affected by this, and this is how the speed map will change because of what we've seen play out already.
Yep. I would have to say that there's a huge, especially for race scores, and I always sort of knew about it, obviously because I go to the races all the time, but it's different when you know people socially and you're sitting there at the races. But we had the most magnificent experience in LA when we went to see the Chargers game. And I don't follow American football. I now follow American football. I went there for 1 day, and I remember asking you, I said, how long is this game? And he was like, 4 hours. 4 hours? I got to sit here for 4 hours. And I'll tell you, I did not want it to end. I didn't want it to end. There was the touch point that they had with you all the way through that game. From the minute you walked into, if there was a stop and play, if there's anything, they still had a touch point with you, and there was still stuff for you to do or stuff for you to learn, or just getting to know the community. And we were sitting next to 2 women who are maybe in their mid-40s or mid-50s, and they've put their whole life into this season ticket. And these boys on the field, they live for these boys on the field. And before I knew it, I knew half the team. She'd given me all this information. I was now rooting for her. And then they were playing the Saints. Yeah. And so I never heard of any of these teams. And they started shouting don't you come here, you dirty Saints? And I was like, what a strange thing to say. And then by the end of the game, I was like, go away, you dirty Saints. I was enjoying dinner on this because it was a different community. Yeah. It was a different, and I know it's also different because when we're in racing, we've got individuals racing and it's not teams. But I still think when I walked out of there, I was like, I would go there so many times. Yeah. You couldn't stop me from not going there. And I said, there's a huge thing to learn there about what they're doing in the States with sport. And I think they've done such a good job with that. And I'd love to see some of those things brought into racing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What do you want to say?
No, I think the experience that we had in America was an eye-opener. I came back really, really inspired about what we've seen there, especially our experience working with the Breeders' Cup, how their communication was excellent. But a simple connector that we don't have here in Australia is the ability to film horseflesh at the races. They would have had so much content created for them because they gave us access, they gave us parameters.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Whereas here in Australia, for whatever reason, we all know why, but the lack of access to film horseflesh at the races, I think it stifles creativity, connection between, breeders.
I agree. User-generated content models are the most cost-effective and creative and authentic way to reach a fan base.
Yeah.
100%. And what about what the Breeders' Cup gave us?
A bill? No, I'm joking.
No, but that was so when we worked with the Breeders, this was another huge thing that I thought was amazing. We were listed as media accreditation, and we had, we were given our access, and then we were given an email at the end of every day of content that they had captured that you could use at any point. So they had
like right
the photos, every horse, they had a video of every gallop.
works leading up.
The whole kit and caboodle was there. And I said, I cannot believe this. And I was like, they were so forward thinking. Saddle pads, like everything's so clearly articulated. When you went for the work mornings, you were given a schedule of who to expect to see. And the genuine fans that were there on that week just watching horses gallop. And realistically, you know, watching horses gallop is great if you know what you're looking at. I think sometimes, and maybe if you don't know what you're looking at, you're just enjoying the motion, you're just enjoying the poetry of what it is you're seeing. But these people were genuinely interested in what time did that horse go?
Yeah.
You know, what does it look like compared to the last time I was able to see it? And I said to Dad, this is really unique because we don't open our doors for that. I know Hong Kong's obviously got their different views on that, and you can watch that at any point. But that was really,
But
really
that's
special.
not even just like, so Breeders' Cup is incredible because you get so many people there. But you could go to Santa Anita on a day of the week and go to Clocker's Corner, and you get people there all the time. They're just standing there's a cafe, and you just stand there and watch the works. Like leading into any big race meeting, there's stacks of people there.
That is unreal.
Yeah,
that's
really cool.
That's something I really feel that we miss. We haven't really quite got that. For me in Australia, I think ownership's we wouldn't be able to be owners in the UK. We've been owners in Australia, and I think it's very accessible.
Yeah.
In Australia, there's some really good price points, but I do think quite a lot of the people that I've spoke to who are owners have came from maybe a gambling or a punting session, and I do think that we lack that real connectivity about what it is that we have. You know, it's not, we don't see it as a commodity.
There's another couple of things they do awesome that I would love to see in Australia. One is visit horse country. So Price Bell who's involved in Light Up Racing, which is the initiative similar to Kick Up over there.
Yeah.
Price and a team of people got this initiative called Visit Horse Country Off the Ground. It's based on the Bourbon Trail. So you can go and visit the different bourbon distilleries around Kentucky, and they all work together, the distilleries, to do like a trail that you can go. I mean, just going to get drunk, I guess, because going around all this, going and seeing how the different bourbon's made. So they went to Disney, this board of directors, and they went and studied and learned about fan engagement and experience, and then they set up a really similar concept. So you can go and buy a ticket to go to a lot of the major farms, or to go to visit Haggard's, the vet clinic, or go and watch, works at Kingland. So they have this, like, it's basically tourism for the industry. And like, we forget, because we're in it every day, just how amazing and mind-blowing what we see is, right? Like, it's incredible. And the only way that really people get access to it is if they know someone. Yep. But over there, that's not the case. They have like hundreds of thousands of people come through and do these tours. And I went and jumped in incognito into a couple of them just to experience it. It's amazing. Like, you got these tour guides, and they've got the business model so that it's not a burden. Like, they're actually making enough money on it. They can employ people to have tour guides. So it's not like the farms have to put down their tools and go and do a tour. They actually employ staff for that. And they've got like a whole head office that takes care of marketing. And so that's an incredible initiative. The other one that I'd love to see, is born out of the UK, is National Racehorse Week. So there's a group of us looking to get a pilot off the ground in Australia this year. Because one of the things that we find around perception of the horse racing industry is most people that have a leading negative perspective just don't know. And they've just believed what they've been fed or seen, or the propaganda that's been, put out by the anti-racing networks. When you bring them in and show them the care and what actually goes into looking after a racehorse or raising a young horse, it just blows their mind. And it doesn't allow the things like the narrative around what happened to Black Caviar to take hold, which was just bollocks. Like, it was rubbish. And because we don't have that opportunity to blow open the doors, that allows stuff to take hold. So the National Racehorse Week, and we're working with the guys in the UK, they've been amazing at like taking us through the pilot, how they set it up and the tech stack and all that sort of thing, so that we can get it off the ground here this year. But basically, you can go and plug in your postcode, and for this 1 week, you can get access to a trainer's yard over there or a stud farm. And so they have, I think it's around 40,000 people now that just go in and can have access for the first time ever seeing these training stables. So we're going to look to do it a couple of weeks after Cup Week, because recency bias, right? We want to have it when everybody's when it's the loudest, that people are the most curious about our industry. And I don't see why we can't, make that hundreds of thousands of people get access to coming in and seeing what our industry is really like. So bringing, while the media side of things, which of course is what we're all involved in, is really important, and content, there's still nothing quite like putting your hand on a horse's head, right? And seeing it for yourself and actually having that really authentic experience. And I'd love to see both those things in Australia. We're certainly we're going to call it National Thoroughbred Week. And yeah, as I said, we'll try and get the goal is to get the pilot off the ground this year. And then horse country can be the one we tackle maybe next year.
With the Reuben trip. We'll do it with the wine.
Well, I think exactly. So actually all of Australia where the best stud funds are, there's great vineyards. So actually partnering up with the vineyards is the method there. And you can start by doing it because you want to establish a proper business model rather than it being reliant on handouts. And so you can do that by actually selling luxury weekends that include thoroughbred, and then expand it out to be more accessible to more and more and more people. But there's an opportunity. There's so many opportunities, that we can do. And that sort of stuff, that's how we really can crack the perception and show what we're doing. And then, of course, we've got to have the safety nets in place, and we've got to have our proper rehoming structures, and we've got to make sure equine safety is always a priority. But then we've got to tell people about it and show them about it, and bring them in. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I can see that space is going nuts. If we can really get into it over the next 5 years, God, the world's our oyster, as an industry. We've got a horse. And what other sport has that? Way cooler
than a football.
It is one of those joys that people should experience. It's even just being around the horse, going to these open days and these events that you guys are driving so hard for. But where do you find the energy to run? Like, you are running at such a pace. Where do you find the energy for that?
I've got a really good team now. I think that helps, right? And you've been going a while. So I've got a great 2IC, Nathan Scrivener at Kick, and I've got a great business partner in Gary at TTR, and a really good squad there too. So it makes a big difference to have people that are on your side. Yep. And a lot of the work that I'm doing in America is driven by a really good board that are very motivated, and so they can see we can try a lot of stuff out here in Australia, and then go there with something that we know works. So it's good. I mean, I love the industry projects are my big passion, more than the commercial side of things now. And it's certainly as I get older, it's more and more what I've always wanted to do, but what I'm going to do more and more of. But I got to pay the mortgage too. So
yes, that's a tough one. That
exactly.
Vic, we've came into 2025. There's a lot of movement in the industry politically. There's a lot of movement in the industry, prize money. There's a lot of industry heads and leaders moving around as well. What would you like to see within the industry by this time next year?
I don't know if I can say it. I'd like to see a lot more positivity in our leadership, and there's a lot of awesome people doing great stuff. It kills me that Lindy Morris, who set up Thoroughbred Industry Careers and pony racing off her own bat, has to go on her knees and beg for funding. Yeah. She's doing the job of these PRAs. Yeah. And she's putting all her time and effort into it. It's incredible. She should be held up by everyone. Yeah. I mean, and good. The breeding industry is really rallying around behind her. A lot of key owners have, but it shouldn't be their job.
Yeah.
100%. So I'd love to see, people with, that are really getting stuck into this stuff. And then, which is awesome what, Katie and Jerry have done with the Magic Millions Women's, because it gave Lindy that $50,000 last year to really take pony racing to the next level. But it's really time that we started actually looking at the depth of what we've got to do to underpin everything, because it's adding more prize money and pop-up races. It's not a solution. It's a sugar hit, right? Yeah. And when you get to the point of trainers going, these levels on these races are ridiculous. I mean, it's right ridiculous. So, I mean, we've got to look sustainably at the next 20, 30, 40 years. And there's some big pieces we need to tackle. Thankfully, in New South Wales, we're in a financial position because there's been some incredible decisions made. And what Peter and the board did to fight and get race fields legislation up, I mean, it's incredible. The difference between us and the UK, right? Yeah. Isn't it? So, we're so lucky. And then getting aiming at getting tax parity. But now we've actually got to spend that money properly and actually build a really sustainable foundation. So that's what I'd love to see happen over the next 12 months and stop the, the fighting and the trying to outdo each other with bravado and sugar and ego, and make it actually about sustainable initiatives that are going to keep us here.
I have to ask, the end goal, are you still wanting to go back to New Zealand?
I love New Zealand. I love visiting. I was here for Christmas and it didn't get above 15 degrees. So I was I really love living in Sydney. I certainly, I'm not there yet. I'm still 5 years away, I think, from having the businesses at a point that they don't need me daily, or certainly that regularly. And I would love to end up in industry leadership roles at that point. And I'd love to go back to New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand got me going, got me started, and it's really exciting what's happening there. She was involved with John Massara on the Massara Report. That was the last project I worked on at Arrowfield, and which was amazing that, being focused on New Zealand. And the Intane guys are doing awesome stuff. So it's in a really exciting place. But yeah, I'm probably still 5 years away, I'd say, from getting back into that sort of line of work.
Yeah, no, look, Vic, I think it's very refreshing to hear your perspective on the industry. Every time we catch up, you're driving on with something which only takes a sport forward. I hope that we have many more Vics coming through in future generations, and hopefully if someone wanted to emulate what you did to gain experience, is there any opportunities at Kick or Kick Up for Racing, TTR, how would a young person, or even
an old person,
medium 30 person, no, how can someone get in contact with yourself about growing their own experience within the industry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always are open to bringing people on, and we have a great young team that sort of spend 2 or 3 years with Kick and then go on to bigger and better things and travel, and the industry is awesome for that, right? Yep. So. But yeah, I absolutely love it when people reach out. But also, if you're in your early mid-20s, look at Flying Start. I can't stress it enough that it was that's what changed my world and opened my eyes to what the industry has to offer. But it's a great industry for being able to roll up your sleeves and get stuck in and just do it. So if people make their own luck. Probably I presume in most industries, but most certainly in ours. So. Anyone who wants to, get involved, just do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it.
Thanks, Vic. Really good.
Guys.
Thanks for joining us, Vic. It was great.
Good chat.